Welcome to the kitchen table. This is what's cooking at said kitchen table. I'm Johan, the host. We got
Gio
and
Michelle.
And they're just going to be arguing mostly about Mongols and other stuff that's related to Mongols. So the first question we're going to start off is, do you guys think they were the greatest land-based empire of all time? Of course, this is considering people before and after.
And I would say definitely they were, because they were the biggest empire in that time. They took over almost everything in Asia, and they stretched out to parts of Africa and a little bit in almost Europe. And then, from their conquest, from taking over all these other countries and tribes and things like that, they got huge amounts of warriors and soldiers, and it just made their strength even greater. And then this strength is what let them to protect trade routes, which made their economy better and just improved everything overall.
Do you have anything to add to that, Michelle?
The way that they conquered and went through different types of lands, they found new jobs and new innovations. So they could have everyone doing something. They could do a little bit of skill tactics too for their military force. And their empire also had a centralized government. So that really helped with keeping it all together in a good format.
Okay, so just to make sure, both of you guys agree that they were the greatest land-based empire of all time?
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
Okay. That's perfect. Now, going on to the second question I have is about the leader of the Mongols, Genghis Khan. Do you guys believe he was the most impactful person in human history, again, spanning from the beginning of humans to today?
So, yeah, Genghis Khan was one of the most impactful because, everyone, history-wise, people know the Mongols. They were ruthless, they had all this control, all this power, and if he was a leader, that had to say something about him. Well, his childhood, he didn't have a really nice one. He was abandoned by his family and tribe, and eventually, strived to survive. He found an unbreakable will, and that's what developed him. That's what developed the Mongols' place in the world. He respected people until they didn't respect him, so they broke his loyalty, they broke his trust. And, it kind of led to their death and a lot of missing people. And, Gio?
So yeah, in addition to him being very influential and inspiring, during his rule, he allowed for a lot of inventions and new creations to come up, such as since they were known for war and conflict, obviously their weaponry is going to improve. So he improved their siege weapons, such as portable towers, some catapults, and to deal with the growing empire and getting messages from one way to another, he made the Pony Express, which allowed messages to be sent from really long distances. And then during his reign, because there was so much territory that was under Mongol control, it allowed for a time of peace to occur, and this was called Pax Mongolica. And during this time, trade prospered. It was safer for travelers to go from country to country. There was religious tolerance, and the Uyghur alphabet was incorporated into the Mongolian language, which made it a lot easier for communication to occur, even though it didn't last long, but still there was a lot of unity during this time.
Okay, so basically, consensus, Genghis Khan was the most impactful person in history because he did all this stuff, being the leader of one of the biggest empires ever, especially in a time where it's very troublesome for everyone. The trade routes are dangerous, the religions are going against each other, and he still allowed for, improvements in certain things. He tolerated religion, he made trade prosper, and he made his own alphabet, or the Mongols made their own alphabet to basically be able to have the whole entire empire, be able to converse freely with each other. And that all contributes to you two both saying he was the most impactful person in human history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the way he kind of treated his empire was like a family. Since he didn't have his own, he felt that having control over all these people, he would protect them. So that kind of led to the 13th and 14th century peace, the peace times.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was kind of a bad guy, but that was only if you betrayed him, his loyalty, which he valued.
Okay, so stay on his good side and everything goes well for you.
Yep.
All right, perfect. On to the next question, which is kind of more probably going to be our longer one. I just want you guys to explain to me the causes and effects of the Mongol Empire, and I want you to kind of talk about the impact each one of those things had on the future. So we can start with causes, and then we'll go from one person to the other. So, Gio, you can start.
So, a cause of the Mongol Empire was when Genghis Khan took his armies out of Mongolia and started taking over all these tribes in Asia. And, this is literally where the creation was made, and this is why today, or a little bit later, the Mongol Empire grew as big as it did.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So a cause would be when the Great Khan died in 1227. So his sons and grandsons continue the expansion of the Mongol Empire across Central Asia, China, the Middle East, and into Europe. So from Genghis Khan, they took that small, although it was pretty large, his portion of land, and they expanded it even more.
And then, when they were taking over all these tribes, they were using swift, decisive attacks with armed and disciplined cavalry, and this was the reason why they were known for all this bloodshed, because they would just take these massive armies and mow through all these towns, and slowly their reputation grew to be feared, and it made it easier for them to start taking over more land.
They also valued their merchants and were located closely to to the Silk Road. They conquered a lot of parts of the land based on the trade routes because they valued the merchants, and they actually made it safe for trades to continue, and they would punish criminals. So they were kind of like the law protecting trade, mostly because they knew that it benefited not only them, but people around them too.
And then Genghis Khan before he died, he tried to unify his empire. So trying to do that again, he used the Uyghur alphabet, but it didn't connect the empire, and it's still used in Mongolia today.
The Mongols also had fearless warriors, and they wanted to expand on their expansion. So they would conquer large areas, like the Roman Empire, which was the largest land empire in history at the time.
And then finally, because they had control of the trade routes and they built roads in Asia and Middle East and Africa, Europe, this, even though it spread trade, it also ended up spreading diseases, and plague from China and Central Asia went to Southeast Asia and Europe, and it just caused huge devastations during that time, and it was a massive toll on Europe.
So overall, the consensus is that through their expansion, and from the beginning, since Genghis Khan and then all his grandchildren expanding on the expansion, and then covering the trade routes and protecting them, overall it was really good for them. The only actual drawback would be the bubonic plague that spread from not only them but to everyone else they were connected to. So that's the only, I guess, big negative to that, besides all the people that they had to kind of, I guess, go through to keep their expansion. But now we're on to our final question, which is kind of probably our most hefty one. So I would just like you guys to discuss the similarities and differences between the Mongol Empire and the Nazi Party. I would like to know, which one do you guys believe was more powerful, and which one was more inhumane towards the people they conquered? So, Gio, you can start.
So, in similarities, there definitely is one big obvious one, and that's the amount of violence that both parties use. The Nazi was known for killing millions of Jews, and the Mongols were known for killing millions of lives in their quest for conquest and all that. So, both of these people were definitely feared, and that's another thing they have in common. Like, lots of people, they heard their names and they would shudder and freak out and just worry a lot for their own safety. So they also managed to conquer a lot of land during their time in power. They would spread from one spot and just immediately, it was like an exponential growth of territory. Once they took over one piece, it just made it easier to take over twice as much.
Mm-hmm.
And even their killing tactics were very similar. They would punish groups for the wrongdoings of one person, and the Mongols would. And the Nazis would, even though they took more drastic measures, they would kill groups of people too. And some positive effects of the Nazis and their incentive for war, it created a better economy for Germany, and this is similar to the Mongols because their war economy made it easier for trade to happen since they had so much control of the trade routes, and it made the Silk Road a lot safer so they could benefit from trade from vast distances.
So some of the differences that the Mongols and the Nazi Party had were that the Mongols funded advances in their medicine and astronomy. They had construction projects that promoted developments in science and engineering, and they needed outside help. So, sometimes they would be friendly and find some ways to improve their own, their state. They encouraged trade, which some people may say linked Europe and Asia together. Their attitude of relative openness toward foreigners and foreign influence led to an extraordinary interchange of products. So there was people, kind of slaves. They had technology changes, and their science point of views in science were also changed throughout the Mongol domains. And over time, it would influence Europe's age of exploration. Unlike the Nazis, who despised groups outside of the Aryan race, the Mongols were hospitable to foreign travelers. And even though they would conquer lands with different kinds of religions, they did have religion tolerance, and they would have monarchs, even though that they didn't submit to them, they would, be somewhat respectful to them because they still had some power. And the Mongols, compared to the Nazis, were very open. They allowed for innovation and were hospitable to their enemies. That cannot be said about the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party really focused on ridding the world of those who caused them years of suffering. It was more of like a revenge towards their bullies, which is like a whole different topic, but they cut ties from foreign lands and also focused on themselves because they wanted to build themselves up from the previous state that they were in, which wasn't really good.
So basically what you guys are both saying through the similarities Gio stated and differences you stated, Michelle, is that the Mongols kind of had more power because they had, not only fear put into the people that they conquered and the people around them, but also respect due to the fact that they were open to others of different religions and, philosophies and such. And, they would allow merchants to come into their big empire and trade freely. And you're kind of, I guess, implying that the Nazis had fear for sure into the, the hearts of the people they conquered, the hearts of the people they were treating so poorly, and the people around them. But they didn't have any respect because they kind of mainly focused on terrorizing the people that they quote-unquote conquered. And, it's no doubt that the Nazis were a powerful force, but the Mongols were just overall more feared and revered by the people around them, but were also respected as potential, allies in any case. And then I just also want to say that, you guys are kind of also implying that the Nazis are like almost hundreds of times more inhumane to the people that they conquered, due to the fact that they lived by the idea that anyone who was not of blonde hair and blue eyes was to suffer under their hands for purely racist reasons. But the Mongols, although they were very violent when they, took over other people, still were hospitable to those that, they conquered after the invasion, as long as they kind of complied with the rules that the Mongols set out for them, and didn't try to, stab the leaders, specifically the Khans, in the back. And as long as they were fair to the Mongols. So, if they paid tribute, then they were good. And, they permitted local leaders of the conquered to continue governing even though they were conquered, as long as, they showed that they would still pay the tribute and they would still respect the Mongols. They were free to have their religion, and that is just the complete opposite for the Nazis. The Nazis would just throw their enemies and people that they thought were inferior into camps and just mistreat them by lack of food, lack of water, lack of proper housing, the obvious gas chambers that they had, and just the complete and utter horrific mistreatment of the people that they conquered. So that's basically all we had to serve at the kitchen table for today. If you guys have any other points or ideas that, we missed, or, you guys want to point out, make sure you put those in the comments. Just keep everything in mind here that this is all research that we personally did, but there's a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about. So I hope you enjoyed. I don't know. Have a good day or something.
Yeah.
Thank you.